Hi everybody, and welcome to the Truth webinar series. It's 3 o'clock in South Africa, 2 o'clock in the UK. I don't normally do a correspondence with global time, but you can also see on the screen today is Peter Lavers. I'm going to do a thorough introduction to Peter. So thank you everybody for joining us. We're extremely excited, and I know it's a long awaited webinar. We had to change the schedule, so thank you for accommodating the change. And of course, as always, we will be sending this out to everybody who registered and everybody who attended today. So obviously it's being recorded so that you're aware of that being recorded should you ask questions later. So thank you particularly to our guest today, Peter Lavers. So Peter, if you can just stand by for a moment while I give you a thorough introduction, because we are very, very honoured to have you and grateful for you giving up your time. So Peter and I met quite a number of years ago now. We were both working on a mutual client, Nedbank, in obviously the South Africa marketplace. And Peter has been working with Nedbank for many years, but to his own admission, he's not active in the South African market apart from working with Nedbank. So his experience is extremely relevant for all of us in the world of customer. But what I'm particularly excited about is Peter and I are different in our approach to customer management. And Peter has a lot of deep experience with customer experience, particularly so as a customer experience influencer, rather than just the pure loyalty play that many of you know the Truth team for. Apart from working in South Africa, obviously he's a very established consultant, director of a business called Customer Attuned, which has been in operation for many, many years. And amongst other clients, just some of the names are really impressive, and even globally, they stand out there. So we have John Lewis, we've got The Body Shop, Vitality Health, which obviously we know very well here in South Africa, but I assume that's not here in South Africa, but in the UK, maybe elsewhere. Boots, I think I mentioned. McLaren really caught my eye. I'm sure that is super exciting. So you might get some questions later on that. And amongst obviously being a consultant, Peter is a SaaS collaborator and an IBM futurist. So an awful lot to bring to the table. And I've thoroughly enjoyed every interaction I've ever had with you, Peter. I think your approach is really refreshing, and super excited to have you with us. So I'm going to turn I'm actually going to turn the slides off, because I think this is a discussion point. So we've got slides, but I don't think it's that relevant. I think it's more relevant that we say hello to you yourself. So after that introduction, Peter, hello.
Hello. Yes, thank you for that kind introduction.
So I don't think we really need to talk too much about the differences between South Africa and the UK, because most of us hone in straight away on the weather, but we're going through a torrential winter here. But as you pointed out earlier to me, that it's probably still warmer here than it is the height of your summer.
Yeah, it might be. It's been an on and off summer for us. Switch on for a week and then off again. Back to winter, it seems to be.
Yeah, but you'd be shocked if it was anything different. So okay, wonderful. So for everybody's just reference, Peter and I discussed what we could talk about of interest, and the list was extremely long. So rather than hone in on one point, we decided to try and cover a broader list. We would love to take questions, but if you could wait, and I'll pick them up all at the end. You can put the questions, please, in the Q&A box. I'll struggle to read the chat box as we're going through the discussion, so rather pop them in the Q&A box, and I'll keep an eye on that and answer the questions, or raise the questions for, I'm sure, Peter to answer more than myself. So I think let's just kick off, Pete. So one of the things we wanted to talk about was this, it feels very crazy to say a new science, because it absolutely isn't new, but data science, and how companies are absolutely using this terminology to be insight-led and so forth. So what's your, let's just kick off. What's your view of how well loyalty programs are companies are managing to do this for their loyalty programs?
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. I think it's worth recognising right up front that actually the loyalty program kind of industry, actually a lot of the origins of what we call data science go way back, certainly in the UK, to when Tesco first launched its colour programme, and basket analysis started coming out as a new kind of discipline. And alongside that, I'm going back a long time now, but alongside that, the whole emerging discipline of database marketing, so direct marketing and database marketing were emerging. And kind of from that, we've seen the CRM industry, but of course the loyalty kind of program sector has grown with that. It's very interesting just to think about it. If you think about basket analysis, basically it was developed to help brand managers and category managers and buyers, even within the large supermarkets and retailers. It was developed to give them insight. But if you think about it, that is really actually still quite product centric. The fact that it was a customer that held a loyalty card in their, in their hand, that was almost incidental. The data was about improving where you place, how you put promotions together, and that was still a very product-focused approach. And of course, it's still valid, and there are still buyers and category managers out there still working with that data. But actually, things have moved on now. This whole idea of being customer-centric as an organisation, actually being passionate about who the customer is and what their behaviours are and what they are seeking to do, what their needs are, has become much more important, front and centre of strategy. And so data science has really helped a lot of companies which did have incredibly siloed and separate data sources. The discipline of data science, which I guess is a bit more than kind of analysts, some people would say it's the same thing, but the evolution and indeed the tools, the analytical tools have helped this, can actually start to bring that data together to give real insight. So there's lots of talk about being insight-led, but what does that actually mean? Well, actually, it means being customer driven. It means actually just, finding out about who that customer is, how can we service them better, how can we keep them, and obviously in the context of loyalty programs. So there's a bigger thing here. Of course, data science is also helping with risk, with credit scoring, with lots of other areas that particularly artificial intelligence are helping. It's helping with chatbots and with online kind of completely digital interactions, where we've got to the point now where people trust Siri more than they trust a real person telling them stuff. So the world has moved on a lot. Has it helped us being insight led? Was definitely given us the potential. It's definitely actually made a lot of these things that have been talked about for many years. It's starting to make them possible, not just for super huge companies with super huge budgets as well. And it comes back to what are your drivers? If your driver is actually just to flog lots of products and not care who buys them, well, actually it does help you do that. But I would argue that it's better to be passionate about the customer and to allow all this kind of new joined up information that we have to gain insight to be more customer centric as an organisation.
And it's a terminology, Peter, that people use, but I actually believe very few really understand what it means, exactly that. So am I using the data to do better credit scoring? Well, that doesn't necessarily mean you're customer-led, customer-centric. But, with all the data insight in the world, we have a theory that we like to apply, but in practice, I know it's extremely more difficult to almost work to a segment of one, So if I talk to some of our clients about your data might look like this big mess of complexity, and then you sort it out into beautiful segments, so you kind of start to understand similarities, whether it's purchase value or value of the customer, or preferences, or actual purchase behavior. But actually getting down to that segment of one, is that just a theory, or are we seeing it happen?
It's a really good point, isn't it? I totally understand and I get the theory behind the segment of one. And what we're talking about in segment of one is effectively ultra personalization. It's what the super luxury industry does with incredibly valuable clients, where you get a truly personal one-to-one experience when you're dealing with an organization. So the idea behind segment of one is that we can ultra personalize our treatments, our communications, and to a certain extent our products and the proposition that we offer around the product, to be so personalized that everybody gets a slightly different experience to the person next door, to the person next to you in the queue for for whatever you're buying. So the theory is good. It's sound. The actual application, I personally, and please feel free to disagree in the Q&A, is I think there is still going to be a place for good customer segmentation in the new world, in the new normal. Because, and part of that isn't so much on the client side, the customer side, because of course all customers are individuals. They are all different. But actually, what can we do until we can become ultra personalized in the way that we treat customers, which of course the super luxury sector can. They can jump on a plane and go and visit you because you're paying enough to actually fund them to do that. So, but fundamentally, we only have a certain number of levers that we can pull in our total customer proposition offering. I cannot offer to answer the phone to you in 1 second versus the next person in 2 seconds versus the next in 3 seconds. That is not possible. So the other thing that we're getting there, but we also cannot offer ultra tailorization. Is that a word? Probably is in America.
No.
we cannot completely tailor our service offering. So until we can actually do that, until we can actually give a completely one-to-one proposition, I think there's always going to be a case for actually understanding this is a group of customers, a segment of customers, and service them and grow them, and develop the relationship with them. This was actually something I'm happy to credit Nedbank. That one of the things that was discussed there, and I don't think I'm breaking any rules, but the point came out. There's a big difference between I know you and I know about you. There's a big difference between the personal and the personalized. I think effectively what is economic is ultra personalized. We are never, as large organizations, unless we're in that super luxury industry, we're never going to get to completely personal through the channels that we have available to us. Even the digital channel, we can certainly know a lot about customers, but I think we're a long way off a personal experience through a digital channel.
I love that, personal versus personalized. That's very nice. It's interesting you say about sort of a grocery retailer, whether it's back in the days of Tesco. So locally in South Africa, we have great personalized vouchering experiences across all of the big food retailers and the pharmaceutical firms and so forth. In my team I think it was a year ago, but we all received at the same time a Pick and Pay emailer with vouchers attached. So we said, right, everybody stop, open up the email, let's have a look, let's compare what we all shop differently. So let's compare it. And we all got very different offers. So at the end of the day, that is getting down to maybe a segment of one, but was it a personal experience? No, but it was personalized. So I think there's some great algorithms being put in place and working well for the South African retailers in that space. So it's nice to see and nice to hear from you, but it's a great debate over whether it should be a segment of one or segments of customers. So hopefully some folks will ask us some questions on that at the end. The last kind of question that's about the data side of it so much, really, that I wanted to ask Peter was, How does customer value management and the loyalty programs typically interact within businesses? Like, so often particularly in financial services, you come across the folks who look after CVM, and then you come across the folks who look after loyalty programs. And unfortunately, I think, not to the credit of some of those organizations, they're not actually linked too well.
I totally agree. That's what I'm still coming across, and it's not from lack of good relationships often within those organisations. The people may speak informally, but it's almost a strategy delinking within within those organisations. Where so if people aren't familiar with this, what is often called CVM, customer value management, is often about the cross-selling and the upselling. So it could be part of marketing, it could be part of our product or category management in different organisations, depending how they're set up. And many organisations will have a strategic objective to increase the cross-sell ratio, or to increase the value per person or share of wallets. You know, there's lots of different terms for it, and basically the CVM team, customer value management team, are tasked with the objective of increasing share of wallet by 10% or something like that. You know, there's often a nice strategic kind of objective for that sort of thing. My experience in seeing all types of organisations around the world, and in lots of different industries as well, is that they are often not successful. So a lot of those strategic objectives are not being met. Now, they may be making improvements, but they often put quite stretched kind of targets to them. And a fundamental of why that's happening is because you need to be joined up as an organisation to do that. So a team working in a silo, typically in an organisation, have all of a sudden got to start influencing P&Ls that sit in other bits of the organisation, and because they're targeted against sub P&Ls, people then go, well, hang on, why are you asking me to give margin away for some greater good of cross-sell? So it all sounds great in the strategy, but actually, in terms of execution, you need to be very collaborative, very joined up as an overall team. So again, executives may say all the right things in the boardroom, but the actual doers who are tasked and targeted with with objectives sometimes struggle to achieve this. And one of the things that is a frustration to me to see is that the loyalty program is seen as something else. It may even be managed out of the same kind of structure, but you know, it is seen as, no, that's what you do. And very often, again, please in the Q&A, just challenge or ask about this. A lot of loyalty programs that I come across around the world, not one set up by you, of course, are effectively what I would call continuity programs rather than true loyalty programs. So they are actually quite short-term, quite tactical, and they are about vouchers, and they are about offers and treatments and bundling, and it is about your next visit, your next purchase. Whereas, you know, true loyalty, of course, we know, and I think we're going to touch on this a bit later, it is about the whole relationship, and it's about much more long term. So I think, you know, part of that is our own fault. You know, we've set up a good continuity program, which is actually quite tactical, and then wonder why we get missed out of the strategic conversation of how the loyalty program can actually build a deeper, longer relationship with customers.
But unfortunately, I guess a lot of the product houses, whether it's in financial services or it may be product brands within FMCG or fashion or whatever, they're more interested in the continuity approach to get the next sale, the next MBO right, the next P&L result for the next month or whatever, rather than that long-term customer retention and barometer of customer loyalty. So Yeah, exactly. Those KPIs are set to make this more challenging.
Well, exactly.
Sure.
And yet a lot of those companies will say, when you read their annual report and accounts, that they want to be customer focused, you know, they love their customers and it's all about the customer. But then actually when you see the hard end of how people are being, you know, performance managed to behave, it's a very different picture.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, speaking from personal experience, I remember a business I was involved with that dial was not moving at all until those KPIs changed. And then everybody, it was a great case study of change management. Everybody owned a customer KPI. So everyone obviously owned their product KPIs, and the customer team owned deep customer KPIs, but everybody, certainly at executive level, owned broad customer KPIs that they had to achieve collectively. So but it's not a quick process, as we're both aware of.
Which comes back to good customer value management. A good kind of corporate level will have a profitability model, a customer profitability model, and they will know at customer, or at least at good segment level, what the profitability is of those customers. And then you've got new levers to pull. You're not just pulling the product or the promotion lever every time. You can actually start really managing the customer experience for value, because that's another one of my high horses. Sometimes customer experience can be put in the soft and fluffy box, but it shouldn't. You know, customer experience should be all about driving profitable customer experience and valuable customer experience for the customer. It should be about a value exchange, not just about wow and delight. You know, that's obviously part of it, but it's not just the soft and fluffy. Yep, sorry, I went off script there.
No, but it's great. It's exactly what we want to hear. Okay, one of the most interesting debates we often have with different clients here in our marketplace is how relevant is rewarding for tenure. So quite a few programs bounce this idea around, well, I want to reward for tenure because maybe it's the strongest indicator of true customer value. So what are your views of that? Like, have you seen some programs that maybe have structured themselves like that, or what are your views around that?
I have to have a bias here. For those of you who don't know me, I started my working life at Rolls-Royce and Bentley Motor Cars, and to think about any tool of recognition. Obviously, we didn't have a loyalty program, but recognizing the loyal, long-standing customers was absolutely fundamental to anything that we did in the relationship marketing, we called it back then. But there's another side of this. As part of what I do customer centricity, for want of a better word, kind of assessments all around the world with all different types of organizations. And in most call centers that I've sat and listened in on, the customer is saying, do you know how long I've been your customer? And the corporate response, fortunately, the personal response from the person who's talking is better, but the corporate response is, actually, we don't really care. You get the same, you're treated the same, whether you're a brand new customer or not. Things that are coming into place, certainly in the UK, regulation is starting to come in to say you are not allowed to offer better promotions or offers, discounts to new customers than you are to long-standing customers. This is actually quite a serious thing here. It's not just something to think about. It's actually, you know, depending which sector you're in, it's going to be regulated, or it is regulated already. And so I would say I would recommend to anybody with a loyalty program, or indeed a loyalty recognition approach, is to use what we've just been talking about, you know, the better ability to join up data, to even just say, I see you've been a customer for 10 years. I see you've been a customer for 40 years. Thank you so much. You know, so much has been studied to say actually the recognition of that is more important than, oh, you get an extra 100 Rand on your voucher versus the next person. That, of course, that's welcome as well. But it just seems to me that there is so much more that can be done in organisations around the world to say thank you, and thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for being a good, loyal customer. One of the things that I've seen in lots of organisations is good, paying, loyal, quiet customers get ignored. They're not complaining. They're not showing up in the customer service side. They're not necessarily coming out in the targeting and the marketing side. But you've got a whole big kind of base in the middle who are pretty much ignored, and their loyalty is just assumed. And for many of them, that's okay to do. But even just to say thank you, even just to give some recognition, particularly in that space, I think is highly valuable.
I think the most alarming, powerful way to get the executives of those businesses to understand that is to show the attrition impact. If some of those customers did decide enough's enough, you're ignoring me, goodbye.
Yeah.
So yeah.
They are the targets of your competitors. You know,
exactly.
They're in a way the ones who are easy to take. And so many organisations, you know, the top end, their key accounts and account managed, and you know, you try and look after them. The bottom end, you're obviously trying to manage for different reasons. You know, they're possibly in trouble economically, etc. But the middle can easily get missed. Yeah,
absolutely. Great. It's lovely to hear you say that. I mean, it's something we talk about, but it's very nice to hear it as well from your side. My last formal question, and then I'll start to encourage Q&As from our folks. But if you think about typical loyalty program metrics as probably maybe ROI or tactical response rates and so on, but you've touched on it a little bit, and I touched on it as well, around the culture of a business. So what are your views around how the loyalty program should be linked to the culture of the organization rather than just pure financial sort of metrics, without trying to go into the warm and fuzzy side of the world, because we know metrics are important? But
yeah, thanks. There's another kind of argument that's going around. We've talked about this segment of one, but there's another thing which is called P2P. I don't know if you've heard of that, and it's person to person, and basically saying we used to have business to consumer, business to customer, business to business, and now we need to be thinking more just about person to person kind of relationship. And again, I get that. To be honest, I don't think it means there is no B2C or B2B anymore. There are structural differences in dealing with a company rather than dealing with an individual that will never go away. But again, the principle behind it, I kind of like, even though, you know, I wouldn't kind of be a proponent of it. But the principle behind it, I think is really strong in that you know, humanizing the customer experience is really important, even in this mad dash to digital transformation that is happening all around us as we go on. So the question, so one of the things I quite like, I'm sure most of the people will have heard about how Amazon talk about being customer obsessed. And for me, that begs the question, well, actually, what do we obsess about in our companies, in our organizations? What do we actually, when, you know, in the cold light of day, when we're not giving a presentation to somebody else, and the unfortunate reality is that we are still obsessing about our competitors. We're still obsessing about products. We're still obsessing about market share, which I think is one of the most un-customer-centric metrics that you can possibly have. So it is there, it's a measure, but to make market share a strategic objective, I would recommend against, because basically anybody can buy market share. Just give stuff away. If you give everything away for free, you'll have the best market share, and you'll be out of business, of course. So think carefully about what your strategic objectives are. And back to your point, Amanda, about the culture. The best organisations that I've come across, it's not just something that's written down. Actually, whatever we call it, customer focus, customer centricity, customer obsession, I don't mind what we call it, but it almost becomes like an undercurrent that washes through the organisation of let's just think about the customer in this decision that we're making. You know me, I like this word systemic. I like thinking of customer management as an ecosystem, of which the loyalty program, of course, is a really important part for many organisations. And it's so sad that certainly in the UK, systemic is often a bad word. People talk about systemic racism or systemic sexism, and of course that is terrible. That's a really bad thing. But actually, it doesn't have to be a systemic bad thing. If we can create within our culture a systemic customer focus, a systemic desire to serve customers. And interestingly, sorry, I don't know if people are on from the public sector or from the charitable, the third sector as sometimes called. Often that is much more effective. That serving kind of culture works much better in the public and charitable sectors. The world of commerce, I think, needs to get more real about this. This isn't just fluffy words. Actually, a culture where the customer comes first is going to serve you well for the long term. The businesses that threw away their sales targets for the last 18 months and have really focused on building relationships with customers, that will pay back dividends. The ones that have just knee-jerk cost cut, affected their customers and often their best customers worse by not being joined up in that thinking, unfortunately, they're going to take a long time to earn that trust back.
It is refreshing to hear you say it, but B, I am finding more and more discussions now with clients in South Africa and globally, actually, because a lot of folks we connect with outside of South Africa are starting to have these questions, maybe not the answers, maybe not the gut to actually implement, but the questions certainly are being raised. And then unfortunately along comes some really powerful hitting KPI about pure sales and it all falls apart. But I'm going to stop our formal questions and open the floor, please, to everyone to add into Q&A. One question we have is, how do you mentioned that you do a lot of customer centricity measurements. Mm-hmm. How do you do that? What are you looking for? What's the approach? Like, talk to us about that.
It goes back a long time. Amanda, I don't know if you met him. He's semi-retired now, but an ex-colleague was a chap called Professor Merlin Stone. So back when I was working at Rolls-Royce, I was his client, and one of the things from an academic perspective that he and others were looking at was, can you compare the capabilities, the business competencies of managing customers and customer databases and customer experience and voice of the customer, all the kind of components. Can you actually compare them across sector? So are they cross-sector competencies, or are they sector-specific competencies that everybody has got to approach in their own specific way? And the answer came out very clearly. You can compare and learn from the best practices of good customer management across sector. And in many ways, I've built my career on that, sorry, my consulting career, because I don't go into a retailer and tell them how to be a better category manager or how to be a better product or retailer or where to put things on the shelves, you know, or I don't go into a bank and tell them how to be a better banker. I go in and help them be better customer managers, to be more joined up in the way the customers are managed end to end of the customer journey that they're on. And so the capability assessments that I do are around models of systemic models of customer management. It was a light bulb moment for me. It was back when I was working with Mercedes-Benz, and I said to the people I was working with, if you just quality managed your customer experience with the same kind of precision that you quality manage your products and your service and the way that you get parts to the right, you know, dealers in right bits of the world, you know, these things don't happen by accident, and yet very often the customer experience is left to accident. And so if you quality manage it, so that's what these assessments do. They're joined up. How joined up are you? How customer centric are you? Based on real capabilities that you either do or you don't have, things that you are or you aren't doing to manage your customer, the whole customer ecosystem, not just the experience or not just the voice of the customer, not just the culture, but pulling all those things together. Sorry to just quickly, but one client I remember brought me in to help with their retention program. They didn't call it a loyalty program, it was their retention program. They had a big retention problem. And when we actually dug under the surface, we found that they didn't have a retention problem, they had an acquisition problem. They had a new sales and marketing director who was like a dog with a bone, as we say in the UK. He was out there getting not particularly high quality sales in, that then the so-called retention team was struggling to keep. It wasn't a retention problem, it was actually an acquisition problem. So that's what I mean by this kind of joined up thinking. Don't just look at the pain, find out where, you know, diagnose the source of that pain. And that's what these assessments do that I've been partaking.
Great, lovely. Thanks for answering it like that and bringing alive like a couple of examples like the retention versus acquisition. I'm looking at the Q&A box. So I'm reading, so from Candice. Hi Candice, one of our judges on the South African Loyalty Awards. Can you comment on the importance and how to include the brand's purpose in the loyalty program? Oh,
great point. Great point. This links back to that point about the culture, and I've been really pleased to see this kind of switch to being more purpose driven, and it's put in different ways. I love the stuff that Simon Sinek has been talking recently about infinite game. About actually, it's not about winners and losers in the year, it's about staying in the game. And I'd highly recommend, look it up, watch his TED Talks. It says it much better than me. And it's kind of as part of that, there's a broader drive and quite realistic business driven as well, because the newer generations who are emerging as our new and will be future customers are much more driven by the bigger things, by the bigger things happening in this world. And I'm sure you've heard of things like rainbow washing and green washing. You know, it's the new whitewashing. It's like all of a sudden we're rainbow friendly. You know, we're LGBTQI friendly. Forgive me, I think I got that right. And it's like, no, they're not. This is just whitewashing. This is you know. So authenticity is really important, and so there should be no disconnect from you know the purpose statements that are being developed for organisations, and the loyalty, and of course the marketing, and indeed the acquisition programs as well in organisations.
I love the question, Candice. Thank you. And
yes,
actually, we present often at Truth. We often get asked, how does loyalty fit in with everything else we're doing? And we often say, you know, at the end of the day, a loyalty or CRM or customer program is useless if the rest of your proposition is useless. So, you know, if your brand, so if you take the 4 Ps of Kotler and then the 7 Ps of service marketing, if any element of those is missing, any one element is missing, layering it with a loyalty program isn't going to fix the missing link of great product or great price or great service. But if all of those are doing okay and the best you can do, we always then say there's three more Ps, the truth Ps, just to add to it. And it's the program, whether it's a structured loyalty or CRM, like an overt or covert program, followed by the purpose, not in any order, the purpose of that program, and then finally personalization, resulting in a better personalized experience. So the word purpose is very powerful in a lot of the work that we do, and it's lovely to hear the debate on it. So I'm going to ask for any other questions. The 2 have been raised. I'm also conscious of time. I tend to try and keep our webinars beneath 45 minutes because I think that's the attention span, an hour is a bit too long. Any other questions from anybody whilst we have Peter online? It's a great honour to have Peter with us. But I will be sharing with everybody, obviously, all of this, and then hopefully, I mean, if there are any questions, Peter, are you okay that I share your details? I mean, it's easy to find you if you just Google Peter Lavers, but people can follow up.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd love to keep the conversation going.
Questions on Twitter or LinkedIn seem to get a nice discussion point. So, okay, great. So I'm going to draw us to a close. Because the weather here is closing in, and my internet, actually, the wind tends to just throw the whole thing off kilting, good South African style. But Peter, I really want to thank you again. It's really an honour to have you on one of our webinars. And
likewise.
Personally, from my point of view, it's just great to connect with you again. You're a solid professional with a lovely sense of humour and a very giving approach. So thank you for joining us.
Again, likewise, it's been a real pleasure, and wish you all huge greetings from the UK. Really feel for what you guys are going through down there still, and very best wishes, and can't wait to come down again to see lots of friends as well as colleagues that I've made down in South Africa.
Great. Well, enjoy what sort of summer you might have in the UK.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thank you. Everyone,
Bye.
I've got lots of messages coming through saying thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.